Hello and welcome to the Sai AI podcast. This is episode number 17. Today, my guest is Shalini Singh. She is my ex-colleague from my IKEA days, a friend, a fighter in life, an Indian Army officer, a speaker, a motivational speaker, and now a politician. What an amazing honor and privilege to have her on the podcast and to ask her views on many cool questions that I have for her. But before that, let us welcome her and ask Shalini, would you like to introduce yourself, Shalini, to us, or should we just straight away go into the questions?
Thanks a lot, Vivek, for inviting me to your podcast. It's an honor. And I think you have given a brief introduction of mine that covers everything. And while we take our discussion forward, I will talk whatever is left in between. We can start the conversation.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Yes. So let me begin like this, Shalini. What do you think is the state of women in India in different professions, like politics, where you are right now, entrepreneurship, because you might meet a lot of entrepreneurs from Delhi or from other parts of India, corporate, because you've worked in corporate already, education sector, research, etc. What are your views on it?
Thanks a lot for your question. It's a very good question where we think that women are now very much empowered and they have the liberty and privilege to do what they want to do. But let me tell you, not only in politics, whichever field you want me to pick up, we are still heavily male-dominated organizations. Whether it is politics or any business field, or if you talk about defense forces, all are, when I say male dominated, that first of all, the ratio of men and women there is huge gap in that. There's not an equal distribution. And secondly, right now in politics, so I'll talk about politics, that still women are not given that kind of positions, not given that kind of authority, not given that kind of decision-making powers where they can decide something for the benefit of other women. That policies are also decided by men. Even if you see in the parliament, if you see in the legislative assembly, the ratio is very less. And if I talk about Delhi, we still have no woman representation in our cabinet, though we are discussing about it, but we don't have. And while we are staying in metro cities, like I am residing in New Delhi, which is capital of India, or if you talk about Mumbai, these all are big metro cities where still we feel that women can come out and speak for themselves. But if you go to rural areas, if you go to villages, small towns, the women are still, first of all, treated like an object. Secondly, they don't have their own voice. Still, the male member of the families, they decide on their behalf. And there are still child marriages. There are still dowry deaths. So all these, and when we are sitting in 2021, and we say we are very much modern, we are now technically very advanced and all, but still it's a very sad state of affairs that even today we have to fight for women. We have to speak for other women. We have women around us who can't speak up for themselves, who are so suppressed that they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the courage, they don't have that kind of privilege to come out and do things for themselves. So this is the state, and I think everyone has to come together to work on it, to take it very seriously. First of all, education is very important. It's so sad that even today, the struggle, if you are born as a girl child, your struggle starts. A few days back, we found a newly born, a 2-day-old baby girl was found in a garbage bag.
Oh my
So
God.
this is still the condition, and that I'm talking in Delhi, not in a village. So even at times, educated people are also was wanting to have male child, and also it starts from for a girl, for a female gender. The struggle starts when she's born, and then her education. Then we have to stop child marriage. We have to let her study, let her become financially independent, which I think is the most important thing today. because the kind of things I have faced in my life, there was a time I was also not independent. I was also completely dependent on a man. So it is very important that
Right.
financial independence of a woman should be the most important thing. It's high time we stop depending on men, that they are our caretakers and they will provide us food and everything and they will take care of us. So once a woman gets that kind of liberty, I think a lot of things can be sorted out.
That's a fantastic answer, and such a sad state of affairs that even like you said in 2021 we have, women representation is so low. And I mean, imagine 40 years back we had our first women prime minister,
Yes.
Miss Indira Gandhi ji, right? But still after 40-45 years we are struggling to have women in but I mean, so proud that women like you are there representing, fighting for the rights, and I'm pretty sure it will change, maybe not soon but in
Yeah.
the coming decades.
Yeah, that's a very good thing you said. Like you mentioned our late Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi. Yeah, it's such an irony that we have in US. If you see, Kamala Harris is now the first vice president, and it was like when we say that US is so advanced, India is like 40 years
Right.
back. We had seen that, but still now we, instead of moving ahead, I think we are going backward, which needs to be taken
True.
care of in a very vigorous way.
Right. And I think what better example than the capital of the country, like New Delhi, where you're from, trying to change that picture so that all of the India can emulate it. So
Definitely.
fantastic. So much support and, so much support to you in doing this. Yeah, great. So how do you, from a motivational speaker and now a coach, how do you motivate the people who had no hope in their life? Like you may have encountered or came across so many people who have lost hope because of the kind of job they did not get or because of some personal family problems they have. How do you motivate them? Why I said this is that we think that, it's just a rat race, like most of the people are in. We study, we get a job, earn and live, but we are still in that same kind of rat race, all of us. And most of us then get depressed and feel very lonely. So how would you help motivate those people?
Yeah. So again, I'll say this question is also very, very good and very relevant in today's time. The kind of things people are going through, especially after this COVID kind of lot of this dullness, depression. It is now sitting into people's lives. So it is not easy to motivate somebody who has lost hope in life. It is not easy to ask somebody to get up and pull up your socks and start working again when he sees only a dead end. I will definitely not say it's easy, but at the same time, the kind of life I had been through, the kind of difficulties I have faced, I was also some way given up. At many times, I also felt very depressed, it, and somehow there was no one to motivate me. But yeah, the kind of surroundings I was like, I had a child to take care of. My mother was there, so there are a lot of times when you don't want to do things for your own self, but you have to live and move on because you have people dependent on you, right? So I
Right.
think that was one thing that kept me moving on. And once I started moving on with the challenges I was facing, the kind of difficulties that were cropping up, and trust you me, all those difficulties were like, you never plan any difficulties, you never plan challenges for your life. What everybody plans is a very smooth and perfect life, and it's not that happens all the time. But once you start
Mm.
moving over those challenging paths, the kind of, if you find that, okay, this is a dead end, but still, if you keep moving on, you can still find a way. So I think in my case, this is what happened. Wherever I was hopeless that this is the end, I can't move ahead, or what will I do now? What I should finish my life, or I should end my life. It is no point going on further with it. But somehow, because of some or the other responsibility, I had to move on. And I found my path. I always found a light. I We say now that every cloud has a silver lining. So somehow I always
Mm.
used to find a silver lining, and that used to give me that courage, that motivation to do my things. And entire thing I copied, and I this entire thing I started translating into people's lives. because when you are trying to motivate somebody who has completely lost hope, they always say, na, practice before you preach. So when you talk about your
Right.
life, that this is what you have done, this is what as a lady I have done, this is what as a very weak person, emotionally, physically, mentally, I had done, and now I am here. So people are able to relate to it. And we can't motivate, like if I am addressing a group of 100 people, my aim is not to motivate that entire 100 group. That is not possible also. But if I'm able to transform two or
Right.
three lives from that 100 lot, my job for that day is done. Because you
Mm.
can't change the entire world together. It is slowly, bit by bit, you can bring that change. Even today, like I get a lot of messages, I get a lot of messenger on Facebook messages. People write that I was going to commit suicide, and I saw your story,
Oh,
I saw your TED talk. And these are people who I've never met, who I've never seen, but I feel nice that they saw that, and then they feel that okay, their problems are nothing in what she has faced. So if they pick up one problem of mine and see, okay, this is what I have faced. Okay, then if she has moved out of it, I can move out. Also, one thing, what happens is people feel if there is a man who is depressed, and when he sees my story, that he feels that when a lady can do it, why can't I now move ahead? So, uh, I think that is what I have been doing, and I definitely talk about my life with a person who says that there is like his problem is the worst, and also now after so many years, I believe my problems are very very small. There are very big problems people are facing, but it's just that the person, anybody who is able to walk out gracefully of a challenge or a difficult situation, that person is becomes an inspiration for anybody else. So there are many who have been doing that, and I've met a lot of people who have very difficult stories than what I have, and few have given up, few are trying to fight it. So yeah, that's how we are motivating people. We are a lot of people doing that, and luckily we are successful in whatever we are trying to do.
that's really amazing. Fantastic and great job. Yeah. So I think connected to that is that I think when you won your Mrs. India title recently, so congratulations for that. Yeah. What made you go for it? Like, I just wanted to, because I know your journey a little bit. You've been an Indian Army officer before, and then you've joined a corporate where we both worked together, and then you had a successful career after that as a motivational speaker and the title that you won. What made you go for it at that?
That's a very interesting question. A lot of people ask me that why did I go for Mrs. India of all the things, because there was so much of problem in my life. There was so much happening in my life. I had a family to take
Right.
care, a job to take care, and then so much of challenges. And then all of a sudden, Mrs. India. So even I am also trying to find an answer. But yeah, what I could have thought of it is like when I participated in Mrs. India, when I filled the form of Mrs. India, I just had a very, you can say, very silly thought that it's just one life, and I just wanted to see what ramp walk is, how will you look as a model. And at that time, my friends used to say that you had such a different kind of a life. If you go on a national platform like a Mrs. India platform, you can inspire many lives. And I had definitely no inclination to go on that platform and inspire anybody. But yeah, that point stuck to me that because of the kind of journey I had, I was far away from the life of glamour and all those things. So I definitely wanted to see how that works, learn something from there, and just add it into my life, because I think this is just one life we have got. Whatever we want to do, we can do just in this life. Previous birth we don't know, next birth we don't know.
Right.
So whatever we are going to do is we are going to do today in this life. And it is very important that whatever opportunities you get, just take on, learn from it, and keep moving ahead. So I think that is all how I reached and thought of doing Mrs. India. There is nothing more to it. I am still not able to find a perfect answer to reply to this.
But that's fantastic. And there is a common theme that I can see, at least, is that whenever you've decided something, like when you chose to go to Indian Army to serve there, or like this title, or inspiring people and helping the people from ground up. I think whenever you look for something, you get it. So I think you're a go-getter, and that's why in your introduction, I said you're a fighter, and I'm so blessed that, we have people like you who can inspire a lot of other people to do the same.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So how are your efforts in empowering women and girls in India to reach your kind of success? Can you share your work done, in this field and your plans in this aspect in future, like your vision for women in India or girls in India, be it any sector they want to serve in?
See, what in my first question also I replied that first of all, it is very important for the family, for the parents to understand it is extremely important that we make our girls financially independent. No job is big or small from whatever family, class, whatever she is coming from. It is very important that you first become independent. A girl has to first understand that what is earning money for her own self is, what is taking care of her own needs all by herself is. This is the first step of empowering a female member of your family, right? So the kind of life I had when my husband died in war in Jammu and Kashmir, I was completely dependent on him. I was a student, doing my post graduation, and at the same time completely dependent on my father, on my husband, or my father-in-law. But even if now my husband is dead, now my father-in-law started to take, okay, I'll take care of you, or my brother started taking care. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. And that time I had a son I had to bring up. I didn't had a girl. I had a son to bring up, and for me it was very important to make him understand that, like, okay, your father is gone, but mother is also a symbol of weak. Like, you lose your husband, people start sympathizing with you, and you yourself are weak. So I didn't wanted him to see his mother as a weak person. I didn't wanted to live on the mercy of others. I didn't want it to be like a life which is just dependent on others, where I am not able to decide on my own what will I do to my son? How will I empower him with anything when I am not? I don't have the courage to first live my life on my own terms. So what is important was, from there for me it was important to first understand this, that why it is important for me to become strong, a symbol of strength. Why I decided to become an army officer. I could have become a school teacher. I could have become anybody else. And even after my
Right.
husband is dead, I'm getting his pensionary benefits. It's not that financially I am broke or something. I am getting his pension benefits, but that is again his benefits which I am getting, which I will get till I am alive. But do I want to spend my life? Okay, I'm getting some money because my husband is dead, but whatever I am doing, everything is being dictated by the male members of the family. So for that, I had to take that step, which was very difficult, which was a decision to join the army. And I took this decision in less than 1 month of my husband's demise. I think the most difficult decision. And even a lot of people thought I've lost my mental balance, or because of trauma, I'm thinking like that, or I will not be able to do the training. It is not meant for me. It is not meant for very strong girls, or mentally strong, physically strong, who have been thinking of it as a career past many years. So, all of these things were thrown at me, and but I took it as a challenge and I did it. Now, when I today, after like it's been 20 years, I've lost my husband. Now today, when I sit on the other side of the table, people see me as a very strong woman. People see me as an icon of strength. They relate to me like that. But now, what I in these 20 years, what every person I have met, what I've told is, please ensure that you give proper education to your girl. Please ensure that you are not in a hurry to marry your girls, because I got married at a very young age, and I will not blame my parents for it. But yeah, definitely they have seen the same in their family. That girls, it is first important to marry your girl, then she can do whatever she wants as per her uh, husband's family. If they want her to work, she will work. If they don't want her to work, she will not work. So for me, it is very important for the families to understand, for the girls to understand that for you, it is important first to get independent. Marriage can wait, but your job can't wait. But you being financially independent can't
Mm.
wait. And then make them understand what is decision making for her own self is. You have to decide on in your own life whether you want to study, whether you want to uh, become a pilot, you want to become an army officer, you want to become an actor, whatever you want, let you decide, because the career of woman is also decided, unfortunately, by the family members. this is not good for girls, this is not good for girls, अच्छे घर की लड़कियां यहाँ नहीं जाती, the girl,
Right.
a lot of things are, these kind of things are told. Even you won't believe, when I thought of joining politics, even my family members, my extended family members came to me that what's wrong with you? Why do you want to go? Uh, Girls don't go into that profession. And I was like, please don't give me all this. So, that is how first this mindset has to be changed. Also, when I became an army officer after the death of my husband, I counseled and coached another female officer's wife who had lost her husband in different places in counter-insurgency operations to join the army. So 13 of them got motivated, and now it's a trail. Now whenever we lose some officer, any lady who is eligible, she takes that path. We have opened that if I can do, 10 more can do, 20 more can do, then why can't that lady feel that why can't I do? I will also do that. So that is a very one positive sign which in the profession of defense we have brought. And also, as I told you, for me it is very important to make the family understand, because girls can only learn what the family is passing on to them. It is very
Right.
important that we have to change the mindset of the family members, and that too, you will be surprised to know that the male members I still
Mm.
find very much broad-minded. The female members of the family, like the grandmother or the
Yeah.
mother,
Yeah.
I find them conservative, and we have to change their mindset. Men are more open to change. Men are ready to welcome the change, but the girls are hesitant. The mothers are hesitant. The
Right.
grandmothers are hesitant. That how will the girl survive outside? How will she be out? So I will never. I don't blame men for this. It is a woman have
Yeah.
them a mindset require change is required from their side. So this is what we do, and we conduct regular workshops. We try and reach out to as many families whenever we get to know that somebody is suffering in any way. We try to counsel, we try to provide, if it is a legal help required, we provide that. If it is a counseling required, we do that. So whatever the kind of situation the woman is, we try and help her out. This is what we have been doing.
Although you've sort of already answered this question, and I don't want to sound repetitive, but let me still ask you, because I'm just still trying to find that really key point in your behavior that has happened when you joined the army. So the question is, and since my father was also an Indian Air Force officer, he retired as a flying officer, that made me go even more interested into your profile of when you were an army officer. So after the unfortunate death of your husband, that must have been the weakest point of your life. I mean, we cannot imagine that. And you were so young. I mean, just to comprehend that is so difficult. What made you then take the toughest choice of your life, being an army personnel, where life would have been very challenging, and then to also raise your son? And then on top of that, you also mentioned that, even though men in your family might support that decision, but the women might be a little more conservative, and they might be like, why are you even trying to do that? We already have a loss in our family. So, wow. I mean, it'll be great, great answer to listen from you.
This question is asked. Ajay, I have answered this question many times in all my interviews. That what was that trigger point which
Yeah.
gave me that
Yeah.
push to go for the defense forces. You won't believe, when my husband died and when he was going to get cremated, we were all everybody was in a total shock, because all of a sudden it happened. And for me to understand what is happening around me, because everything was happening so fast, to understand what is suddenly happening around me was also difficult that time. And in that scenario, people are giving me suggestions to do sati, sati pratha, which is banned during
Oh,
the Britishers' time. They are giving me your life is of no use now without a man. I was just not even completed 23 years of age, and and you start believing that. You believe that you have to do that. You agree to it. Okay, this person is saying that, yeah, I should die with the man, and I am okay to die with that person, because my life is of no consequence anymore. What will I do with this life?
right.
Now, second, at the same time, even if you are trying to be strong, even if you are trying to brave the tragedy,
Right.
The outside
Right.
force of people, whether they are genuinely sympathetic to you or they are just trying to show that they are sympathetic to you, they are bringing you down by giving you that weak things that your existence doesn't matter without a husband, or what will the poor child do? Oh, he has lost his father. Oh, what will the mother do now? Oh, what will the wife do now? All these thoughts started sitting in my mind, and I was not strong. I was just not strong. I was very weak. But I think all these things happening around me 3, 4 days next after his commission, it just gave me a thinking point that is this what I want for my life? Is this what I want to give to my son? Is this what I want to, if I
Mm.
have to live for next 50 years, do I want to live with this sympathy, with this kind of people telling me that go and do sati or go and die with your this thing? And I also thought of dying, I also thought of committing suicide that
Oh
okay,
my
my
God.
life has no consequence, I should go and die. But I will really thank my thinking process. I will thank Almighty, whatever was that trigger point at that particular day and time. That when I thought
Right.
that I will join the army, and when I told it to my family, nobody believed it, what I'm saying. Everybody felt that saying that no, she's lost her mind, she'll be fine. But I
Mm.
was like, I am going to do this because I thought to myself, I'm already sitting at a dead end where I am seeing death as the next option. So why not I step out of this house? I take this challenge. I know it is going to be very, very tough. It is going to be very, very tough, but it is not going to be impossible. People like you and me are there in the academy. People like you and
Right.
me are officers. They are all human beings who have been trained by another set of people. It is something not
Mm.
inborn that somebody is born as an officer, defense forces officer from his mother's womb. So we all have been
Right.
trained to be strong, and what is more required is a mental strength. So I think thinking that I want to join the army was, and I was so sure that I will do it. I think that was a test of my first mental strength. That okay, I have that decision. I have made that decision. So I will move that path. So that means I have somewhere shown my mental stamina, and that is how I was there. And when I was going to academy, a lot of people told me, "You won't be able to do. Don't feel bad. Come back. We'll take care of you. Don't feel
Oh.
anything." And when I became an officer on my passing out day, on my commissioning day, the same set of people are saying, and they're telling me, "We knew you can do it. You are a very strong girl." So this is like this is how people's perception change. So
Yeah.
we have to decide what we want to do with our lives, right? And I always say it is we who can make or break it. Things will keep happening one after the other. You can't control the situations, what is happening, because the next moment, what is going to happen, none of us know. But how we act or react to that situation, that definitely we can control it and accordingly align our lives according to that.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And the theme that I got from that answer is that you did not want to live on any kind of favor or any kind of support. You wanted to build your own life by yourself and not needing any pension from your husband's support. So that's so amazing. And that is why I always say, I mean, women like you should be at the forefront, because then people can see and, make their daughters be like you and, let them live their lives as they want. So fantastic.
I would definitely like to add one thing, like you said that
Sure.
I don't want to live on anybody's support. Anybody can provide you support, but that support is going to be very temporary if you think for a permanent support on that
Right.
person. But
Right.
everybody will come out on for your support when they see you as an independent person now needing support. When a person is permanently needing support from the other person, you will not be treated good in the long term, right? You will just be
Yeah.
treated like a liability on that person. You will just be treated like a liability on that person, and your life will be you will start pitying your own life. So
True.
only seek support when you are so much independent that you can provide support to 10 people, and at some point of time you are in a situation where you need support, then people are happy to support you. So it's very important to
Mm.
understand that this difference.
That is absolutely key. Yes. Great point. Right. Let us go to a separate topic, because this was so amazing what you've shared already with us. But in your opinion, what do you think about today's India's transformation from the fastest growing economies in the world to a more learned society in technology. We have so many PhDs, people moving out, getting good jobs, becoming Google CEO, this and that, and also the adoption of artificial intelligence. So, I mean, a lot of these things are happening in our country. How do you see it? What is the reason behind it, and how do you see the future of it?
See, if we talk of it, it's a very good thing that technologically we are becoming so advanced. We are depending on new tools. We are AI is the now the in thing, and it is going to be the in thing
Right.
in next few years. And
Right.
so, but at the same time, what I say that everything comes with the pros and cons. Not everything comes with 100% disadvantage, or not everything comes with 100% advantage. Sometimes we say, "No, so good to be true," something which is looking very nice. So it has always has its side effects. If I talk about social
Right.
media, social media is
Mm.
something which, when it came, people felt it's the only thing and best thing, nothing wrong in it. But we also see a lot of side effects of social media. How children are now so much captured by it. How many fraud cases are happening, scams are happening, hacks
Mm.
so a lot of things are happening. Technologically advanced, it is very good. We will be competing with a lot of developed countries, which we should be. Why shouldn't we? But at the same time, the kind of population India has, we are
Mm.
also seeing a drop in employment. A lot of people depending on
Yeah.
technology, we are losing jobs because if I talk of AI, so I was reading somewhere some auto industry plant, which company it
Right.
was, Mahindra or Hyundai, I'm not able to remember. They completely automated their plant, and some 6,000 human laborers were had to lose their job because that plant
Wow.
was automated, and suddenly 6,000 people lose their job in one go. And now those
Right.
6,000 people will either become criminals to feed themselves, or they will get into some kind of depression, or they will run to look for another job. So, as I say, everything has a pros or cons, and we have to balance it. It is very important that we balance everything because our population
Mm.
is also increasing, and in a of India, the population, we are not able to control that. When you're not able to control your population, then you have to provide them their basic services. You have to provide them social security. You have to provide them employability. You have to take care of their extending families. You have to take care of their children, their health. Everything is required to be taken care of. It's a chain thing from one thing to other.
Right.
So, and also, yes, a lot of people move out of the country because they feel they have better options outside, they have better opportunities outside. That I never see it as a bad thing for India, but also, yeah, we always say brain drain. If there is brain drain, somebody is at the losing end,
Mm.
somebody is gaining from it. So it is again for the government to see how they want to do it. But I definitely feel that,
Right.
yes, if everybody will go out and contribute, then how will the country grow? But at the same time, we see other country citizens, they also come to our country and they contribute. So it's a more of a give and take kind of a
Give and
relationship
take.
that nations have. So
Right.
we can't be talking that only everybody from India is going abroad. It is not happening like that. People are coming also and working here.
Wow. So that's a great answer, Shalini. Connected question to that I have for you is that, as we know, this is an open world and world without borders, at least as per me. So then how important are the non-resident Indians like myself, in your view? By my last research, I have learned that it is something around $75 billion every year that they contribute to India in direct remittances. Just to name one thing, I mean, there might be so much cultural changes that they bring in after they live in countries overseas, like 5 or 10 years. So, some of the good things that they bring in. So, what is your perception of how useful or not so useful, if you think like that, in building a more modern and sustainable India?
Trust me, I have a huge respect for NRIs because once you move out of the country and you just are you're on your own busy in your life and you're doing things there, and you might tend to forget what you're doing, what your country is suffering or what not suffering, whether they need you or they don't need you. But as you said that how NRIs contribute to this to the economy of the country, the what I understand, to between 2% to 4.5% GDP is their
Yeah.
contribution. Also,
Right.
what you talk of direct remittances, there are very indirect remittances, like if there are any kind of natural calamities, when you talk of flood or
Mm,
earthquake or anything, and when we talk of
mm,
charities to NGOs or helping anybody, any individual also, if you raise a fund request. And so trust me, there we get a lot of support, right? And then they also send back money to their family who's there. Not the entire family doesn't move with a NRI,
yeah.
right? So they have their extended family. They try and support them also through financial support. So that is also contributing to the economy. So I think NRIs and their support, economical support financial support plays in a very important role in building India's economy. And also, my gratitude to them for their thoughtfulness, because I'm connected to a lot of NRIs, even in the organization, the political organization I am. We have a NRI team which is operating from US, and every Sunday they come on call together and they connect with any one of the senior leaders and they try and understand the requirement. Then they generate funds and then they remit it to for the support. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of understanding. It takes a lot of human compassion, sitting cross borders, sitting overseas, and thinking back of your own country, of your own roots from where you've gone, and collecting funds for them. I participated in an event in US, in California, where I was also part of fundraising exercise by the NRIs there, where they were just trying to raise fund and send it back to the handicapped people of India. They were trying to send some automated
Mm,
wheelchairs. Somebody was trying to send some of the other equipment which can help anybody who is handicapped. So, these things really matter a lot. These things really count in your contribution, whether it is direct or indirect. And nobody can question an NRA. If you don't want to contribute, don't contribute, right? What if you have a direct liability, you have to contribute. But if you are contributing without having any liability, that really needs a lot of strength, courage, and love for your uh, country and your countrymen.
true.
So I think I really appreciate their contribution, and I think they are also one of the backbones of the economy of our country.
Mhm. Great answer. Great answer. I didn't think it from that perspective. So glad that so many people are supporting your cause and trying to change India from whatever bit that they can do sitting outside. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay. So since you are now connected to the governmental affairs, let me ask you this question. How is the current state government in Delhi, in which you're a part of, changing the capital of India? Because I think that is where all the inspiration will then trickle down to all the states in India. So to make it as an example, right, to the whole country. Then if I can ask you one more question related to that, is that are you ideologically inclined to the AAP party, or is it to serve the people and your community you're there in politics?
A very good question. So I will reply from the second half of your question, whether
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
ideologically inclined to AAP or I was a completely apolitical person, and I am still believed to be that by my family members, because I had no interest in politics, and I was doing my job as worked in the army and then in the
Yeah.
corporate uh, whole. I was doing my own things, but yeah, I was working with a lot of NGOs, and at some point of time, I
Mm,
felt that I was not able to broaden my work, broaden my horizon, not able to help people the way I want to, because of a lot of political restrictions. You have to take permissions from the some MLA, some
mm,
SDM. So everything was getting
right.
stopped at a political this thing affiliation. So
True.
either you keep requesting somebody who knows that XYZ MLA or MP, and then your work is done, or you directly get connected. Now, when I thought of joining politics, for me, any of the political organization in this country, whether it is AAP or BJP or Congress or Sapa Basa, whichever, for me, all are same, right? But now staying in
Right.
Delhi, I had heard a lot about the work of Arvind Kejriwal government, what they are doing, and the kind of things they are publicizing about the schools, the education, health. So what I did, for me, it was easy to walk down to a school and see what they are saying. Is it true or not? go to
Right.
a health center and see what they are claiming it is right or not. So I did that.
Right.
And so I went up to a government school, and I was really surprised, because I had seen
Hmm.
that government school. I have not seen that particular government school, but we have an image of all the government organizations.
Right.
But when I stepped into that education center, I was so surprised. I was so surprised. And first thing in any of the government organization, because I've also worked in government organization, I've worked in a very good government organization as a defense sector. But still, at times, we used to face the problem of washrooms. The worst thing which you will find in a government organization is the washroom. So when I walked to the
That's
school,
right.
my first thing was to go and check the washroom. If the washroom is good, that means the school is good. And trust me, when
Hmm.
I went to the washroom, it was like a five-star washroom, all Italian flooring and this, that. I
Oh.
couldn't believe it. I came out and I again went inside, whether it is not a sample or something. But that gave me that thing that yes, they have worked. And then I went to a health center.
Hmm.
And like I met people there. I met visitors in that health center, and they were like very happy that now we are getting medicines. People, we have very posh areas in Delhi where we have these health centers where medicines are given for free, and people from upper class, upper middle class are also coming in taking medicines for free because you're getting that facility where you
Hmm.
can get your routine medicine. So why not take the benefit? And that was the point that I felt that uh, if they have been able to change one school, if they've been able to bring uh, a revolution in one health center, that means they've done their work.
Hmm.
In past so many years,
Right.
why not other governments have been able to do? And with
Right.
that thought, I approached them that I want to join them. Also, I had an invitation
Hmm.
from other political parties to come and join them, but this was the only parties which has not given me an invite to come and join them. So for me, I was intrigued to see what they're working, and that is how I got into this party. And now I will complete 3 years with them in next 2-3 months. I have never regretted a single day being part of them, and I'm still trying to become a politician. I am like only 10% of it right now because yeah, a lot of times my colleagues in politics they say, "You don't look like a politician. Abhi, you have to learn a lot. You have to behave like politicians." So I really don't understand because I am very sincere in my efforts. Maybe that sincerity comes from my work in the defense forces, my work in the corporate, where we are bounded by timelines, where we have to do things as a like in defense you have no laxity of work. In corporate also when you have to meet deadlines, you have to meet deadlines. It's like you can't just take it lightly.
Right.
But in politics it's like you do it or you don't do it, nobody's going to question it. People can only cry that
Hmm.
oh our work is not done. But when you do start doing it sincerely, you see that people are trusting you. You see that people are having that kind of faith that this person is doing things for me, and that is what has happened with the Arvind Kejriwal government. Getting elected as
Hmm.
a CM for the third time, I think it talks very high about the people's faith in him. And more of it, we are a very young organization, and we are doing a lot of work. Literate people, all from good everywhere. One has left their good job, they have left their good business. Well, like they all were very much
Yeah.
uh, settled. Somebody was sitting in Hong Kong, somebody was sitting in Apple, somebody was with the TCS, somebody was a C. Everybody was doing well, but they all came together for a call. Even our CM, he was IRS officer. His wife was an IRS officer. They left their jobs and they all
Yeah.
came together. So yeah, so I joined them because I saw their work. And even today, if you ask me that am I an ARP fan, I'm not an ARP fan, but yes, I support the work
Hmm.
they are doing now, definitely. I think I can
Hmm.
never be a fan of any political party, but I can definitely support a political party on basis of the work they are doing. The day they stop doing their work, maybe I can stop being part of them.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think I also have the same kind of, thinking when I speak to somebody in India and they say, pick a side, pick a side. And I'm like, I cannot pick a side. The reason is I just like the person who is doing an X work
Definitely.
for the community. It is not a party. It shouldn't be a party. It shouldn't be a Donald Trump. It shouldn't be a Biden. It shouldn't be a Modi. It shouldn't
Definitely.
be great answer because that's how the leaders, I think, our country needs, wherein, you're not sort of blinded by the ideology or because of one person's work and more aware about why have you joined the public service. So Great, great. Kudos to you,
Thank you.
Shalini.
Thank you.
Yeah. So my next question to you is, can India change by itself, or does it need to transform itself by getting inspired from the good things that are going on around the world? In no way sort of demeaning or degrading our country's efforts in whatever we are doing today. But still, can we learn from other countries in every aspect? Do our politicians and bureaucrats know how different countries function? So, for example, you've been to California or you've been to other places in the world. You've seen how, urban planning is done. You've seen sewage planning is done. You've seen how governments have control over how communities should perform. So, in your view, how can we sort of translate that to India to make it more modernized? Then, if you can just bear with me, it's a little bit big question. The ministers and leaders in our country are currently so old, most of them, that I don't think they know how much the world actually has changed around them. So then how can we expect them to compete with the growing economies like China and others who are really getting bigger? Why I ask you is that the cream of India always leaves India to find better job opportunities, better living standards outside country. And I am a culprit of that as well, and a lot of my friends. But I mean, it is so natural. How would you want to not take that opportunity when it comes, right? So then how will we convince our coming generations to stay in India, and modernize it like the rest of the world? What is your opinion of it?
Great. Let me first say kudos to you for putting up this question. It's a very, very good question, very meaningful question in today's time. So
Right.
now I'll come to you in parts about it. Now,
Sure.
where you have said that we have old politicians, we have a lot of politicians who are not literate. So since I am part of a
Right.
political organization, I'll talk with that this thing that our political organization is the only political organization in this country with all the ministers being very young. Right. We
Yeah.
have zero minister over 50, right? And we have a
Right.
team of people who are like 25. We have a team of people 20, 30 in the 35. And we have zero illiterate leaders. Everybody is either somebody is an engineer, somebody is a doctor, somebody has been CA, somebody has cleared his UPSC, was IS officers, from public service background. So that is one thing which I can say change has started to begin. Now, India having a history of, and I completely agree that we should, when in every job, when in every government job or a private job, we have an eligibility criteria. Why not in politics? I completely
Right.
support it and I keep saying that. I'm very vocal also about it. Now, again, I'll come back to my organization when you say that when we are having better things in other countries, how are we going to grow if we are not adapting it? I say that we
Right.
have to adapt best practices from other countries, and that is what the Arvind Kejriwal government is doing. We have sent our teachers, the government school teachers, to London, to Singapore, to Dubai, to understand the study the education model of their countries. And the same has been replicated in India. All the best things. Our children from the government school have been sent to different countries and then exchange program to go and see how it functions, how the students treated there, how they are taught, what kind of education model is being followed for students, right? If I talk about myself, till yesterday I finished a 3-week course I'm a counselor right now with the Delhi government, and I finished a course on local governance and public participation from a university in Germany, which was completely sponsored by recommended by my senior leaders to understand the thing, like you said, to understand their development model of road network, drains, sewerage network, just to completely understand that, right?
True.
So I just finished that. It was a 2.5-week course. And because of COVID, we did it online. Otherwise, it's been third year that somebody is doing from our party. So for previous 2 years, somebody had gone physically to Germany and done this course.
Okay.
So we are bringing that change, right? We are adapting best practices, and it is very, very important. See, when you say India can change on its own, nobody can change on its own. You have to put that effort.
Hmm.
And what is India? India is we are a group of citizens staying here. So we all have to
True.
learn. We have to learn. We have to unlearn. We have to keep. We have to keep alive what is good of us. We have to leave what is not good of us. We have to adapt what is good of others, right? It has to be a mix of
Hmm.
everything. And I think with my political organization, with my organization, with Delhi government, I'm very happy that they understood this model, that not everything is good in India. You have to pick up best things from outside. Donald Trump was the president. His wife came to study the Delhi government's education model, transformation.
Hmm.
She visited Delhi government school. She spent like 2 days visiting all the schools to see how this transformation has been brought in such a short span of life. So even they are trying to understand. So I think
Hmm.
every country wants to do that. And even in my 2 weeks course, what I saw that we were 19 from other countries, from different countries. And we all were trying to understand how their country's model is working, how my country's model is working. And everybody was believing it and agreeing to it that yes, we have to adapt the best practices. Now it is on the top leaders of the country uh, that they have to come out with a plan where they educate their leaders, they educate their staff, they educate their authorities, whether it is the
Hmm.
bureaucrats or the teachers or the doctors. Also, important, like you said, that people like you who are talented people, but because of lack of opportunities, you had to go and settle into another country. And we have to find a method
Hmm.
to stop brain drain. We can't stop it completely, but if we develop so much in our own country, if we give that kind of comfort, that kind of life, why people are going out? Because we feel we have a quality of life there. We have our
Hmm.
children are secure. We can provide them good education. We can provide better facilities. When we step out of the house, we are more safe. If we are able to do that here, why will you like to go out? Nobody wants to leave their own country and go. But yes, given a choice, everybody will like to go and stay where there is very much comfortable. Even in Delhi, people
True.
from small villages, they leave their village and they come to Delhi because their village is not developed. If we develop their village, they will
Hmm.
stay there and they will work towards developing their own village into a better. So this is how we have to stop brain drain, not cross border, but everywhere. So I think yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that happening in Delhi, that happening by Delhi government. But yes,
Hmm.
it's still a very long way for the entire country to adapt this model because being in a
Hmm.
democratic situation, you know how opposition works. Whatever you are doing, it is being brought
Yeah.
down. But at the same time, when you keep doing it and start bringing results, people understand it. So this is what
Yeah.
I feel we are doing from our side. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great answer, Shalini. Yes. So moving forward, I have this philosophical question that I actually almost ask everybody on my podcast.
Okay.
So I cannot let you go without answering that. So think from a human perspective. Let's just forget about, politics or entrepreneurship or anything in the world. Let's just try and decode this answer from a human perspective. So what is the meaning of life to you? Why do you think we are here? And what is the purpose of life to you? We live, die, and then that's it. So, what do you think? Is it pointless or is there a meaning to it?
That's a very, very philosophical question, but definitely a very nice one, and I would love to answer this. So, see, nobody knows from where we are getting life and from where death is coming, where you are going and from where you are
Hmm.
coming, right? But there is something which is
Hmm.
working and which is making us live a life, right? And when I talk about human life in particular, if we see from our astrology point of view, they say after 700 births, you get a human life, right? I really don't know how true is that, but getting a human
Right.
life is something very sacred. And I think when you get a life, it is important that you understand that you've got a life. Be thankful to that
Hmm.
life, and if you have a ride when you are going out, So that means you have a blessed life. So it is important to make use of that life, and also at the same time, it is important not to use that life for your own self or for your own blood family, but it is important that you
Right.
share whatever you are getting to anybody you can. If even if you are supporting one voiceless soul, an animal, or a human being who is in need of help. See, we can't expect everybody to go out and help 100 people, but if you step out of your house, you see one person who is in need of his help, whether it is a person or a human or anybody who is needing help, I say that is a life well lived. That is what is
Mm,
important. Now, I
right.
completely believe in the existence of life because there is something life and death. I have experienced death in my own family. I have experienced
Mm,
me living back again after going into a kind of, you can say, emotional crash and psychological crash of giving up on life. But there was something which made me live again. So I completely believe in the existence of life, and I think we must respect the life we have got. It is very important. So on that note, I'll also say that people who commit suicide, I feel very bad that you have got that life. We all have to die one day. There is nobody who is going to say ki, I will never die. Nobody is there who can claim that I will never ever die. This life is like I will continue to live. So you are going to die, then why to finish it on your own for no rhyme or reason? The time and effort you're putting to finish your life by doing a suicide because it's not easy to commit suicide. It's not easy to die. So the time
correct.
and effort you're putting and thinking how to die, the same amount of time and effort if you put on coming out of that challenge, which is forcing you to take such a drastic step, I think that is much better and that is more justice you're doing to your life. A lot of people are struggling to
Mm,
live. Cancer patients are struggling to live. Somebody who has
mm,
a kind of terminal illness, that person is trying to live. And here you have got a life and you don't want to live. So I think we must respect the life and surely the human life which we have got. It's very, very important that we understand and we should have that gratitude that God has chosen us to make human. We can speak, we can think.
correct.
Yeah,
Fantastic. That's a great answer. I mean, it's a gift of life that we
yeah,
have received, and instead of ending it, we should think about how to improve it, take help from others, and then lead our lives in a good way.
yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Um, I had so much fun, Shalini. This is how we end our podcast, but I had so much fun, listening to all the answers from you. I'm pretty sure all the people who would listen to this will also get enlightened. Do you have any parting thoughts for us before we
Yeah.
wrap up?
I would say that the kind of podcast you made, the kind of questions you asked me are very different. Your questions are very different, especially the last one. I really like the last question because very
Right,
less people ask these kind of questions, and we are more towards
right.
practical questions. And I
Mm,
enjoyed myself replying to these answers. And whenever I do a podcast or any kind these kind of interviews, there are a lot of takeaways for me also because
true.
when we exchange our thoughts, we also learn a lot of things. So it was again, I will say thank you. It was an honor and privilege to be part of your podcast and share my views, listen to your questions, and prepare myself for those answers. Yeah, it was a very very good uh, time spent with you on this podcast. Thank you.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for taking out so much time from your schedule. You're such a busy person. Really respect that. Please go and change the world for better, Shalini. We are so proud of you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please support this podcast by liking, commenting, sharing it with your friends, and also subscribing to this channel. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.